got 3 more techs to go, and I think at the current rate we're on time to complete all of them. Yep, we'll try to go away transitions. Guess I was going to make unemployment, well, overemployment worse, but we'll try. Despot of St. Petersburg. Hey, what do they want? Just good old administrative corruption. I can work with that. The taxes back up to high to keep us from spiraling to debt, even though we probably could deficit spend at that rate for the rest of the game and be fine. The price of war. All workers of their country all workers serve their country in their own way. Basic expedition. Ace officer. War heroes need to stay in the war. I don't know quite what's going on with their GDP. It's definitely struggling to stay up high. Granted, what might have been happening is I've raised the taxes, right? So redirecting it from more efficient pursuits to military pursuits. Likes politics so much, you should become a politician. Kill rate, more squad offensive. Down to 2 techs left. 21 months for one. Probably half that for the other one. Oh, someone actually has chemical warfare, so it's spreading to us. I'll make it faster. No one has the gas turbine, so we're gonna have to hard research that. basically just waiting for the victory to roll through. Well, the end of date to roll through. And we could bring in the intelligentsia here if we wanted to, but we don't need to. As we are getting close to the end, I'm getting more and more tempted to just dump the tax rate because we don't take the debt into the next game. Just to see how high we can get the GDP and the standard of living. Although, of course, doing it too soon would be... well, doing it too soon and crashing the economy would be a bit bad. A bit disappointing. Here we go. We got old age pension. Which has made the subsidies and the welfare payments go up. Okay. Oh, mostly the welfare payments go up. Maybe jump there. Oh yeah, that would put us at the point where we're no longer able to actually support the budget. If we needed to go on indefinitely. We don't need to go on indefinitely. We've got less than 3 years to go, right? You verbally do the math to figure out how long we've got. So we've got 4.4 million divided by like 0.1 at the moment. So 44 weeks. It's just about 8.4 years the current burn rate. So we're not concerned at the current rate of running out of money. Although that maybe puts it into perspective. We couldn't do this indefinitely. We would eventually have to reduce costs somehow. And the solution almost certainly would be subsidies or welfare payments. It probably needs to be the welfare payments. Because that would only bring us up to about 4 or 5, 6. We'll do this because we worked out the math that we can do that for 8 years, and the game's only got 3 left. That would probably bring it to like 4 or 5, and that'd be getting a little close because interest would start kicking in. Making it go faster and faster. Although we are providing quite a bit to the military buildings, so maybe post-war, when those costs go down, we can lower the taxes some more. Oh, our humanitarian is dead. Placed with a proper communist. Oh, we're up to 30.9 standard living. Not quite sure what kicked that off. Oh, well, I suppose that could be the old age mentions kicking in. There's chemical warfare. So now all we got left is the oil turbines, which will be done in 10 months. And yeah, I think I will go retroactively, at least split this one into 2 parts. So, for watching on YouTube, sorry for not having an outro on the previous part, assuming I remember to cut it in 2. Then there probably won't be an intro on this part as well. Although, I could potentially cut the intro off of the previous one, just do the same intro twice, but yeah, I think I'm just going to cut it in half. What happened to my stall chance? The protectionist is equally opposed to both cooperative ownership and laissez-faire, so now the industrialists just don't care. Okay. One of our admirals is dead. Should probably replace the admiral. The trade unionists to make them even more powerful. Just disregard that that trade unionist is a corporatist. Fort in a Sea of Anger. Do you have more declared interests? I do. Yeah, literally hitting the point where there's no... It's not that we can't make more jobs, it's that we don't have anyone to be in the job. Full employment has been arguably achieved. Once again, we condemn slavery. Spanish have still not fixed their whole slavery problem, apparently. Let's see if that fixes the bureaucracy problem. Doesn't, I might start lowering welfare. Oh, we still have administrative corruption kicking around. Just a bit of administrative corruption. Minus 23% bureaucracy. That might explain why the bureaucracy is being an issue. Oops. Here we go. So we got regulatory bodies, and we really don't want worker protections at this point. Got oil turbine complete, so we just completed the achievement. Inventive, but obviously done that before. We're not going to swap for the oil turbines. Could go state atheism. Don't think that's probably worth bothering. Could move over to collectivized agriculture next. Although as we get closer into the game, the less likely these are to complete. Also, I suppose in a way, less likely they are to actually improve the economy. There you go, there's cooperative ownership. So people start breaking treaties with me because, you know, communism. Minus 100 for having incompatible economic systems. Fair enough. And one charter above it, so I probably need to re-militarize someone, but that's fine. And then we should probably, if we've collectivized the factories, we should collectivize the farms. It's going to be a little bit more pushback on this. We should probably still have the greener grass campaign in Alaska and Washington DC if I want them growing. I think this is probably the highest I've had the standard of living on average, up at 33.2. Upper strata started to come down in standard of living now that communism's kicked in. Yeah, you can see the financial districts melting away. Although they're growing and melting, which is interesting. So that could be to the fact that they're still building stuff, right? There's so much left in the queue. And then these aren't worker cooperative at this point. $4.8 billion. Less than a year to go at this point. This is probably also onshoring ownership, I suspect. Well, I'm less sure about that. I'm not sure if we're actually collectivizing the British-owned levels. And then you can probably see here in the construction standpoint, often one reason why you might not want to go communist is well, in our case, we're being hit by the fact that there's not enough infrastructure, but the private communists don't reinvest as much. Looks like collectivized agriculture is just going to sail through here. I'm actually surprised at this point the industrialists are as powerful they are. Oh, because they're mostly made up of engineers, apparently. Fair enough. Okay, I think I'm close enough to the end of the game. I'm not going to go bankrupt if I turn the taxes down to min. See if we can break 5 billion before the end of the game time here. Demand for fish is up. Demand for grain is up. The value on sugar and okay, it might be worth trying to actually turn what's with the ratio between sugar and to grain. Oh, and we broke 5.1 billion GDP. Tibet's having a succession crisis. Well, probably not even. It's probably just like a visionist crisis or something. Yeah, we got up to 5.1 billion GDP as good old United Syndicates of America. Education's at 75%. Theory, it's probably rising. So we do have maxed out 72% education access from education, and then should be like 2 times 34? Say 32. 2 times 32, so that's 64 education. So we got 100% education access in places that are fully stated, on average. So yeah, education should be trending up. It's a bit stagnant because we're in the process of still stating places. Right, we're probably still stating bits of China. And then literacy is a lagging indicator even at that point. And if we weren't months away from winning the game, this would be an uncomfortable burn rate. Actually, arguably, this is an uncomfortable burn rate even months away from winning the game, but... pretty much just seeing how high we can get the standard of living before the game doth end. I don't think there's going to be any, but are there any places... Well, actually, no. What I'm thinking, what I should probably do, I was going to do that, is instead come to agriculture. Example doesn't make sense to swap to single crop. Game says no. It's maybe not wrong. Because the base value on the grain is lower than the fruit. This would have to do the math, because if the game is wrong there, the game might be wrong there. It's just not doing the math right on it because of the larger numbers. That might be the case. So I don't necessarily find it difficult to imagine that minus 15%, well, sugar in particular. Granted, it only makes 2 units of sugar, so it'd mostly be the fruit. Yeah, we got pretty low standard, or pretty low growth rate. 1.4 million, well, almost 1.5 million pops growing a year. I suppose that's a pretty exponential, well, at this point I think it's pretty leveled off. Maybe it's still a positive angle, but leveled off growth rate there. I'll just suppress the negative article. There's the Victorian century. So we made it up to 5.1, just short of 5.2 billion GDP. Standard of living at the end was 34.7 at 44,000 prestige. 534 million people, of which 23.7% were machinists, 22.4% were laborers, and 15% were engineers. Political strength was mostly machinists, engineers, and shopkeepers. Largest population, because we conquered large chunks of China, were the Han. Of course, being North America, or being the United States, the Yankees were in second for overall population, with North German coming in third. Apparently had a lot of North German. 28 million people were North German. And then slightly different ordering, but it was Yankee, Han, and North German for political strength. It's from a religion standpoint, it was Confucian, Protestant, Catholic. Okay, that kind of tracks with Han, Yankee, and North German. And of course, Protestant was the most powerful religion, with Confucian actually coming in third, Catholic coming in second. We're going to hit the continue playing button here, so we can get back into the game and see some of the stats in the game. Before I go ahead and do one last save and bring the stream to an end. If you're watching on Twitch and you want me to look at any particular stats in specific, now's a good time to leave that as a comment so I can go find the stats you're interested in. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to let me know as well via comment. I can always make a short video of me looking at particular stats if I miss them. So population here, we get a slightly bigger breakdown. We can see that the upper strata is absolutely collapsing in standard living, which does make a lot of sense, seeing as we just went communist, so they're now unemployed, or seeking different employment. It's probably a good way to think about it. So of course they're paying no taxes because they have no income, and their needs are more than their income, so their standard of living is dropping. Here's the breakdown. So only 30,000 people-ish are the old ownership class at this point. Oh no, they only have 30,000 power between them because they're the ownership class. They're down below 2,500. So yeah, the ownership class had basically evaporated by the end of the game. Standard living was, of course, collapsing. Although the standard living for the middle class and the lower strata was on the rise. We're up to 32.1. Oh, it doesn't go that far back. It's only going, only goes back 13 years? Okay. Not even a full, yeah, about 13 years. 12, 13 years. And they were at least in the 20s that entire time. There was an argument that going, communist didn't really buff them that much. And then you can see the curve on the middle strata. And again, going communist buffed them a little bit, but not actually all that much. And then you can see the population growth of the upper class, and then communism hitting. So we dropped from a high of 5.8 million upper class to a couple thousand in the end. The standard of living dropped from 72 to where it was at the end. So if you're really trying to maximize standard of living, there's an argument that you want everyone to be upper class. Because even under communism, you can't really get the standard of living of the middle class and the lower class much higher than the 30s, 40s. Unless you do it real early, so you can really focus on quality of life bonuses for them. Whereas the upper class, you can happily get them up in the 70s. Of course, getting a very large portion of your population, well, that was 5.8 million in a country of 534 million, so like 1% of the population was upper class. At the end, we had about 40% was middle class. Yeah, probably about 40%, and the rest were obviously the lower class. Which obviously is also everyone else. So as we take over people, you can see it jumping up and down and people escaping. Whereas the middle class and the upper class were a bit more of a smooth curve because we tended not to lose the places with large quantities of middle class and upper class from revolts. Whereas the low class would be peasants and stuff we'd be losing. So that's the professions by population and political strength. This is the cultures. So Afro-American was a fairly strong culture. It didn't make the top 5. And then poor Dixie. We did not care much about our Dixie class, and that meant they came in 5th in the United States of America. And then religion-wise, Confucian, obviously, because we took over a big chunk of China. Protestant is the state religion of the United States. Of course, you start on separation of church and state, so it doesn't really grow. Catholic was a lot of migrants coming from Europe. We took over a decent number of Sunnis. And that would be China. That would be China. Didn't take over that much of India, so I'm surprised we're getting that much. Although that might have been migration from India as well. Orthodox would have been probably migration from Russia. Oriental Orthodox, okay. Shinto would have been migration from Japan. Yeah, so that's the map breakdown. Han Chinese working in the automotive industry, being secure, yeah. And our biggest state, was our biggest state actually New York? 37.6. Yeah, it was outsized Beijing at the end. Whether due to Beijing shrinking or due to it growing, I'm not sure. I think due to it growing. We did have a greener grass campaign on it for most of the campaign, I think. That's probably why New York's so big. And then where is Washington, D.C. population-wise? We had greener grasses on it, but I wasn't necessarily remembering to build the people in Washington, D.C. 5.26, or 9.26 million. Oh, I guess this must not be sorted in order of population, is it? Yeah, because we're getting the odd outlier. So there's the District of Columbia, 9.26 million. And of course this is not in order, so it's hard to check to see where it would be in the lineup. Might be by GDP. That kind of makes sense. And if we go to society, we can see how people fall into different groups. So we had none that were in violent hostility, which makes sense. We're on multiculturalism. 0.5% were on cultural erasure. 42.5% are on open prejudice. 1.6% was on second-class citizen, and then the majority are at full acceptance, which kind of makes sense because we're on multiculturalism. I'm actually surprised we got so much down in open prejudice. Oh, these might be recent arrivals. Oh, this actually looks like this is the Han population. Okay. No shared heritage, no shared language, and basic acceptance for a religion on separation church and state. Okay. Yeah, that's one of the weaknesses, I suppose, of multiculturalism. I suppose that's the weakness of the current discrimination system, right? Is you can't accept everyone, even the best lot. If they're out of your culture group, you're kind of SOL. Yeah, no shared heritage, no shared language, and he only gets you plus 40, which isn't enough to get them into even second-class citizen. Right, to get in second-class citizen, you need 60. Which is why we've got everything, I think, basically in open prejudice or full acceptance, right? Because full acceptance is pretty easy to do if they're in your culture group and share a language trait or something. And then cultures, yeah, the fervor, it was up. Not quite sure what fervor does, actually. Play as much on the patch than that one. Fervor is the measure of the national spirit or culture. Pops of a culture with high fervor assimilate more slowly, or more radicals when conquered, increase the liberty desire, and are more likely to join cultural movements. Okay, so you are ruling people that are not of your culture. You want their fervor to be low, so they're less likely to be a problem. The following conditions: decrease fervor, having a primary culture of a country with multicultural law, or having high average acceptance. Okay, that's how we were suppressing them mostly, which it wasn't working, but we tried. And of course, that's a bad thing for your culture, although maybe you don't really care if you own the entire culture. And then, yeah, base Han acceptance was only 40, though our religious was getting it up enough so most of them were second class, or in the middle rank. And then when you go from political strength, Yankee, Han, population is Han, then Yankee, then North German. Already saw that earlier. So that is, I think, where we're at. And then Confucian Sunni, and then classes. So yeah, upper classes basically collapsed. Lower class was the majority, but was definitely getting closer and closer to being middle class majority in the end. Although that's probably also why we were starting to struggle with actually getting any real growth in GDP near the end. Was we were running out of places to sort of promote from and to. Anyway, obviously a minus 20% or minus 20 budget isn't sustainable. And it's not gonna be a good estimation. So we could cut like $1 million there and get like plus 12 there. So yeah, we were at the point where we're running a negative 7,000 or 7 million deficit, which wouldn't have been sustainable. Although probably the solution to that would have been either move off of old age pensions or reduce Social Security, right? Because one of our biggest expenses, yeah, welfare payments alone would have fixed that. Or start subsidizing things. Although stopping to subsidize things would probably have started to cause various collapses if it caused an unemployment cycle. So probably the welfare is the one to fix if you needed to keep doing that. But obviously we'd gone the whole game at this point. So I think at this point I've gone across most of stat windows, at least the ones that I can think of. Yeah, we could sort by population. You can see the population of all the nations. We obviously had the highest population at the end, highest standard of living at the end, highest GDP at the end, and of course the highest prestige at the end. Oh, and we actually got the prestige requirements high enough that both the Ottoman Empire and Mexico fell out of great power status. So there were only 7 great powers. And we're almost 5 times the size of Great Britain. 10 times the size of Russia and Spain as far as prestige. And then if you're looking at population, we're quite massive. With more than 10 times the population of Spain and the Ottoman Empire and such. Don't necessarily know a good way to check what global population is. To get an idea of what percentage of the global population we are, but it's got to be up there. It's got to be somewhere in the thirds to the fourths. You got 500 million there, yeah. Well, that's the end of the run. If you're watching on Twitch, let me go ahead and bring up the rough schedule for the next couple days. Hope you've all been enjoying. So the schedule for the next couple days is that tomorrow is going to be Shadow Empire. We've got lots of unknown planet to take over. Monday is going to be Terra Invicta. We're going to try to use the bigger particle cannons as a holdover until we get into the laser plasma. We'll also see if they actually work as an alternative to laser plasma. I know laser plasma works because I did it in the previous run. Less so particle cannons. Tuesday, we're going to be playing Panzer Corps. Think I'm going to go ahead and at least run the north side of Poland. We may continue on the old save for Norway South. I'm going to run. I'm debating whether I'm going to run a 6-part or a 4-part or whatever stream. So we will play a lot of Panzer Corps on Tuesday. How we're going to do that, I'm not quite sure. And then Wednesday, might play Victoria 3. It's the day before Christmas, so we'll see what I'm up to playing on Wednesday. I've recorded enough that I could probably postpone Victoria 3, but how I would then do all the juggling, I don't know. So, Shadow Empire tomorrow, Terran Victor the day after that, Panzer Corps the day after that. If we're playing the day before Christmas, it's going to be probably Victoria 3. There'll probably be a stream. I may change up what we're playing. And then we've got Christmas on Thursday. So the 25th is Christmas. Obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, this is a part that's coming out after Christmas. Because I try to be 2 to 3 days recorded ahead of schedule. So I think specifically, well, I'm going to cut this part in half. So that's actually going to give me another part than I need. So I think this is actually Sunday's episode. So 26th, 27th, 28th, 20... I think this is the 29th. When those come out on YouTube. Although I may do some overlap. If I do Victoria 3 on Wednesday, I'll probably do some overlap between that run and this run. So you'll have an idea of when things are coming out. So that's the upcoming schedule. I hope you've all enjoyed. If you've got any comments you want me to respond to on Twitch, now's a good time to leave them. I'll leave the stream up for about a minute after I end this YouTube recording, which I am about to do. So until the next part or the next stream, I wish you all the best of luck and a good time. Catch you all in the next part, and bye for now.